And we are live. Well, on the interview. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have a very special guest here. This is very alarming, I should, to say the least, what's happening in Midland, Texas. And I've gotten good news. We're going to have a Doge coming up pretty soon in the city, or it's already happening, correct? But, anyways, before we get to that interesting detail, can you state your name and who you are? Go ahead.
Yes, my name is Kyle Cramblett. I work for the John Birch Society. The John Birch Society is an organization that trains activists and regular people on proper constitutionalism and how the government's supposed to work. We believe that you can't be an effective activist unless you fully understand how the government's supposed to work. And the foundation of that is understanding the Constitution. So that's what we do. We also train people on how to do things like this bond situation we're about to talk about. We've done all sorts of things, both locally and in the state level and then nationally, but more commonly on the state and local level, including legislation, like we have a nullification bill to prevent the UN and the WHO from having any jurisdiction in the state of Texas, among other things. When I was just a member of the Birch Society, I'm an employed person with the Birch Society now, but when I was a member, we blocked diversity, equity, and inclusion training mandated for city employees in the city of Temple, Texas. So that's just an example of what we do. And it's not really me, but it's the volunteers. And I just sort of help orchestrate and help people understand what they're doing and how to organize it.
Very interesting. If you can give a quick summary of what you do, what would you tell people that you do at the John Birch Society?
I educate people. That's the quickest. If you want more, I educate people on here. Let me make it a slogan for you. I prove to people that they are not powerless.
I love it, man. I just like to be simple, and I think sometimes in this day and age, less words is more impactful, especially when it's just right in their face. I'm a bold kind of guy, but anyways, so we're speaking about this situation in particular, in Midland. Uh, they got rid of Ranchland Hills, the golf course. They passed a huge bond with the Energized Midland, Reagan in the Hoso. That guy. But anyways, I digress. It seems like we've been getting taxed almost literally to death in this city. Can you go ahead and give us the info? Because this is very alarming for tax-paying citizens, which I am, and many Midlanders here that have our families. This is crazy. So go ahead. The floor is yours. What would you like to state about the upcoming bond or the taxation? Just give us a good, beginning and a pretty good little summary for someone that would understand better what's happening, because I think people need to be aware of what's happening in this city, and not just that, where our tax paying dollars are headed to. It's crazy.
Yes. Well, so what we have here is a situation where the college district wants to go into debt, just like the Midland ISD went into debt to pay for a bunch of development projects. Now I'm talking building buildings and not paying teachers more or anything like that. So when you go into debt, so in this case, you look at the bond order here for the college bond, they have to pay it off in up to 40 years. And over the span of 40 years, so they want to go $450 million in debt. The interest will be about, it'll bring the total cost of this thing to about $1.1 billion over time. The high end of interest is 5.75%. That's according directly from the college. I think it'll probably be a bit lower than that. But the interest is not so important as the understanding of Midland's unique position as an economically vulnerable place. If things change in the oil business, there will be less people here. Now, so let's go back to the bond. On the radio, you'll hear people selling the bond, the Midland College bond. They need to build this stuff to help the economy because they want to provide training. They want to provide training for all these people, and that'll help stimulate the economy and all this stuff. So they say your tax rate is going to be, it was something like $128 a year for a $334,000 home. Now that might sound like not very much, and it does sound like not very much, but you have to understand that's just a promise. Here in the bond order, it actually doesn't say that there's a limitation on the taxes. So they might do that tax now, but to pay off the bond, they can raise it any time. And I'll read this directly. So it's asking the question, will the Board of Trustees of the district be authorized to levy and pledge and cause to be assessed and collected annual ad valorem taxes on all taxable property in the district sufficient to pay the principal and interest of the bonds? So if you say yes to that, you're saying you can tax me whatever is sufficient to pay for the bond. You're not saying you can only tax me $128 per blah blah blah, house value. So you have to understand what you're getting here. So anybody can go on the county website. This is something that I teach. This is something you can learn with the Birch Society and Midland DOGE and everything. You can go on the county website and you want to look at the actual contract for these bonds. So then you can cut through all the crap, really. So they can tax you whatever they need to tax you to pay for the bond. It might not be now, it could be later. Also, from an economic standpoint, we just had the CEO of Pioneer on CNBC. You can find that at MidlandDoge.com if you scroll down, talking about how they're running out of inventory, particularly they're running out of tier 1 and they'll run out of tier 2 in 2023. That's a sort of a paraphrase. So you've got all this debt already. You've got $1.7 billion of debt, actually a little bit more. These are from last fiscal year. So they're a little bit more because of the school bond. So $1.7 billion in debt. If this bond goes through and you people out there don't go and vote no for it, you're going to have $2.8 billion of debt. And then there's another water district bond, which is $650 million. So we're talking, we're getting close to like $4.5-5 billion. I have to do better math on that. But so you have that amount of debt. You're running out of tier 1 and tier 2 inventory. So then you have a potential decrease in jobs in the area over time. So you have a decrease in population because why are people here? They're here to make money usually, and then they leave. So what's going to happen is everybody who wants to stay will have to pay more, and they've agreed to pay more if they vote for this bond because it says you can be taxed as necessary to pay for the bond. So this is just, I'm not even going into any minutia here. This is just the super basic overview of why you listener out there might want to get involved here. Now, you can get involved by voting against it. Of course, that's the May 3rd election. You can also get involved by going to MidlandDoge.com and clicking contact and putting your email and stuff in there, and then we'll reach right back out to you and tell you how you can assist us on spreading the word about this.
Let me ask you a question. Why are you against this? If someone would say, why would you not want this to take place, or why should I vote no? What would you tell them?
I would tell them it's, as a taxpayer, it's not your responsibility to pay for someone else's education. So the pro bond argument is, and I'll give them a good go at it. The argument is, we have all these jobs that need to be filled, and we have all these students who are graduating who need training to fill them. So if we can create the facilities through which they can be trained, we can go fill those positions immediately. Then people will stay in Midland and they'll have good paying jobs, which will assist the growth of the economy. That's fine. But let's go back to first principles. Is it your responsibility to pay for someone else's education? Who wants the training? Who needs the training done? Well, it's the oil companies that need the training done.
Wow.
Do they have money to help people pay for training? I think they do. I think they do pretty good, or have. I mean, unless I don't know something. So it's the principle of the thing. So we all have to go into debt to pay for a small minority of people to get what they want, that being the oil companies and the students. All right? That is kind of the definition of socialism.
I'm going to ask this without being too conspiratorial, but I think there's a correlation here. It seems like, I guess the oil companies are somehow using the college. Well, it's exactly what's happening. The oil companies are somehow using the college to train their workers to go work for them, and we're the ones that are footing the bill for them to learn how to do or to learn how to work or get trained for said jobs. Is that an accurate statement?
Well, I have one person who's pro bond he said, I work for an oil company. I don't remember if he said I worked for one or I currently work for one, but it's one of those two. He said, I worked for an oil company. It's expensive to train. That's why we need this bond. So that's a person I won't say his name, but he's in a position of elected power talking about that. So that's an admission. The oil companies need the training, and they want the taxpayer to pay for it.
So I just want to know though, how are they framing it, or how is this benefiting anybody that lives in Midland County, or is it's going to be footing the bill here? How is that going to benefit us for them to train oil field workers, or to train them at all? How does that benefit a taxpayer? I just want to know.
The
Oh,
yes. So they want to train them for other things too. So you said plumbers, truck drivers, air conditioning, also nursing. Uh, the Let me give a good argument on their side. I'll try to make them sound good here. So their argument is we get more people with these jobs, so they'll stay here and stimulate the economy. They have I don't know. I kind of already made that argument for them. They have all these numbers that they've come up with that are projecting what the economic benefit will be. Now, those are all made up numbers, though, and it's nearly impossible to verify or to depend on them. This is what salespeople do. You make sure you say this is what you could make in 5 years. You could make 8% on your investment. They also have projections on how many students will be attending. Of course, the number it's higher. They say we're going to have 10,000. So right now they say they have 6,100 students. Well, a huge portion of those are part-time students, and here on this we have some statistics, but these are old. These are from 2022 and 2023. So 3,900 are part-time out of that 6,100. Um, a bunch of those are, I've heard numbers like 2,000 are online, but we don't have actual specific reporting from the school, so we don't know the exact number. But a huge proportion are online only, and then like over a third are dual credit, so they're not even attending the college. So you're left with like 1,800 students actually utilizing the college. So they say the number is 6,100, I think it is, but you're really looking at 1,800 around that actual students. Now, when you ask the college for actual numbers, it takes so long to get them, and so I have a friend who's asked for that stuff. But so we have to get these numbers. We have to kind of estimate a little bit on past enrollment and that kind of stuff. And it's the same with the debt numbers. Like it took me over a week to get the current college debt numbers. So on our flyer, it says Midland College 9,785,000 in debt. This was from the Texas Bond Review Board. I highly recommend people check out that website. That is last fiscal year, so it's not up to date. And someone called into the radio and said, "Hey, that's not up to date. You got to get your numbers straight. We have no debt." That was a trustee said, "We have no debt." That's not true. They have over 3 million of debt, but the number changes, and it's a pain to get information, y'all. So, but if you want to learn how to do it, give me a call. Go to Midland DOGE, click contact.
so this is pretty crazy. I mean, what are they going to actually use the funds for? What are they? What's their statement? What is the funding for? Because this just doesn't make no sense.
The funding is for, well, you got to always go back to the actual contract.
Yes.
So we'll go back to the contract here.
And that's on what website? I can look it up right now. What website is that where I can get the numbers or get
You can
the
get
bond?
it on go to midlanddoge.com
Okay.
and scroll down. And there's a link to download this file down at the bottom.
Okay.
So let's see here. For the purposes of designing, constructing, and equipping new facilities to expand workforce training through the addition of an applied technology complex and a health science facility, as well as
Oh.
renovating, improving, modernizing, and equipping current college facilities, safety and security enhancements in the district. So it's for those buildings and then some kind of more general kind of stuff. Now, by the way, y'all, there's tariffs going out on, I think, steel and a bunch of other stuff. So this number might not be enough after those tariffs are executed. I don't know Nino, you would know better than me what the deal with the tariffs are, because I'm always like focused in on the state and not the national stuff. But this number might not be enough for them
Yeah.
after those tariffs. So
Well,
something to think about.
and then you said in the documents box, I have it pulled up right here. It's a pretty good website, Midland Doge. Y'all check it out. Uh, they can basically change at a whim, right? They can request more money. Is that what you're saying?
to levy, pledge, and cause to be assessed and collected annual ad valorem taxes on all taxable property in the district sufficient to pay the principal and interest of the bonds. So they can tax you whatever is sufficient. In other words, when you read legislation or you read anything like this, you look for what the limits of the government's power is. So like the Constitution is a great example. The Bill of Rights, it's all, you shall not, shall not be infringed. So anytime anybody reads anything, look for that kind of language. Here you don't see it. You see no limitation.
Wow.
The only limitation is will not exceed the maximum rate per annum authorized by law at the time of the issuance of any issue or series of such bonds. So I believe that's referring to Texas law. I don't know for sure, but there's certainly not a number in this document.
This is crazy. So they basically have they're able to just do basically what they want, especially with the wording here, because I mean we all know a contract, the devil's in the details, y'all. So anything else you want to point out about this that you think is pretty alarming and that the citizens of Midland need to know about? Because we're starting to uncover it. Shout out Midland Street News. This is horrendous. I'm a fiscal conservative, and the way I look at it is, you don't have the money, you don't pay for it, right? You can't buy it. But the point with this is, I'm gonna be honest. None of my kids go to Midland College. I don't see any benefit of this whatsoever on my end, But I'm just a little guy in the south side of Midland. But this is just pretty alarming, like I said in the beginning of this video. Anything you want to add to this that people need to know about?
If you don't want your taxes to go up, you need to vote, and the election is on May 3rd. But you can early vote at the Midland County Annex, and that's April 22nd through April 25th. And there's some other dates. If you want more info, contact Midland DOGE. Go to the site, midlanddoge.com, click contact, and let me know. We're around. And also, we need help. If you please help us, we need the cavalry to come in, because the other side's got a lot of money. They got every major person in town working on it. It is an off-season election. Nobody knows about this. That's the most important thing. Nobody knows. So help us. Someone help us out there. I'll contact you immediately. We need you. We want you.
And let me ask about that real quick. It being off season, can you explain a little more what that means? I guess do you think they're trying to slide that in there, or is this normal? For voting on something like this around this time, why would they do that?
1 month ago, we hear there's a $450 million bond, and that the election's going to be May 3rd. It's like less than a month. That was, I guess that was a month ago. Does that seem like enough time for the voters to have what we might call informed consent? I don't think so.
Hell no.
If you informed consent in medicine, maybe you would like informed consent in going into debt on behalf of someone else.
And let me ask you one more question, or I got a couple. But for those that say that it's just into your property taxes, what is this gonna be long term? What's it gonna cost a taxpayer? Like real numbers, if you can kind of estimate. I know it's kind of hard to get the estimations over there.
They're going to start with this 0.005384 per $100 of taxable assessed valuation. They're going to start with that. So that's like, I think the number was like $128 a year if you own a $334,000 home. So that's what they're going to start with. And I guess that number may not seem high, or it may seem high. I don't really know. But if you already think your taxes are too high, then you might not want to take on more taxes. Also, from a principal standpoint, whether or not that's a lot of money to you, to me, it almost doesn't even matter. You should not be responsible to pay for other people's crap. This country was built on being left alone and having freedom. It was not built on. Actually, was destroyed by the idea that you're supposed to pay for other people's crap. So if you want to reject that ideology, the best thing you can do locally is cut off the money. And right now, this is the best way, is to get out there and vote against this.
Great point. I like that. It's the principle, right? Taxation is theft. And let me just ask this question. So it's going to be a certain couple hundred per year, but then how many years? You said 40?
Yes, the bond order. So we'll return back to the bond order. So let's go to, where are we here? Okay, so if you go to Section 8F, The bonds that are the subject of this election shall mature serially or otherwise over a specified number of years, but not more than 40 years from their date, as prescribed by applicable Texas law. Though the district estimates that based on current bond market conditions, such bonds will amortize over a 30-year period. So they're saying it's a 30-year bond. It's up to 40 years. Yeah, I don't, So this is what I like to say about this. How many bonds have there been around here? There have been quite a few recently. So let's say you get a bond every 2 years. So between now and 40 years from now, we're talking 20 bonds, 20 new bonds. So even that alone. By the way, folks, you got to understand local taxes, how this works. They don't raise your local taxes a bunch all at once. They do it a little teeny tiny bit every year. So you don't notice it, but then after 10 years, you're paying so much more taxes, you move. And I think that happens probably a lot in Midland as people move out a lot. Like they move as soon as they can. If they're not tied to the place sentimentally, let's say.
Yep.
So understand that 40 years, read the bond order or the election order, and it's good for the audience to get involved with this stuff and read this stuff too, just to kind of, this is the language of how your money's being used.
Totally agree. And we're being taxed on multiple fronts right now. I want to believe, I don't know if Stan knows the numbers. I think it's like 4 bonds we're paying for currently right now. I think they barely got passed in the last year or not sooner. But I'm just saying, y'all, this is like crazy. I'm looking at it as someone that's a fiscal conservative. I don't want to be in debt. I don't want my kids or grandkids to be paying off this debt. And it's just, they just keep throwing this stuff at us. And then I think the transparency with the city of Midland, it's not there. I'm just being honest as a lifelong Midlander here. So anyways, this is crazy. Taxation is theft. Final, I guess, part of this interview is this right here. In your opinion, you said that you don't like it due to just the principle. Of course, I'm the same way. And I'm looking at the numbers, living here. But them taxing us like this, in the way they're doing it, do you think there's something morally wrong here? Or what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I don't know.
Or is this business as usual for a small city or a city like ours? I mean,
I think this bond stuff started happening a lot more recently. It's everywhere, ladies and gentlemen. I travel all of West Texas. That's my territory, so to speak, for the John Birch Society. So this happens everywhere. They've got a huge one in Lubbock right now. They have a huge one coming along in San Angelo right now. This is a constant thing.
wow.
And if you don't stop these things, they do them year after year after year. You kind of need to like stop them like 2, 3, 4 consecutive years, and then maybe you'll get a reprieve. But if y'all aren't watching, they're going to keep doing it forever. They're going to keep doing it until everybody leaves. That's the end goal. And if you understand like how like communism or socialism works on a macro scale, this is an example of how it works on a more local scale. Like you make it really hard for people to live and afford things, and then you have to create housing assistance for the people who can't afford housing. So to create the housing assistance, you have to pay for all the upkeep, so that raises the taxes. Well, once you've raised the taxes, there's a whole new bracket that now needs housing assistance, which means you have to build more affordable, quote unquote, affordable housing, which means you have more upkeep costs, which means you have to raise taxes, which then a whole new bracket above them needs assistance until the entire place is owned by the government.
Oh my goodness. All right, man, this this is freaking crazy, but this is like an onion. There's many layers here, and most people don't have time to even look at this stuff because we're so busy trying to survive in this, in Biden's economy, right? Thank God that Trump's in there. But let me ask you this: Mídland DOGE. Touch on that real quick, though. Did y'all start that, or what's the situation with the Mídland DOGE? Because I've heard a lot of citizens in the comments talking about we need a Mídland DOGE, and it's interesting that you said that that's your organization. Or can you touch on that? Go ahead.
Yeah, and it's I'm helping people with this, but it was not necessarily my idea. We had a couple other people bring it up and who asked me to assist, and I thought that was a really just a no-brainer way to attack this thing. So that was we came up with that like a month ago or something, and we were like, yeah, we should just go ahead with that. And so, but here's the deal with Doge stuff everywhere. You want to watch out for the people in power creating their own Doge, because this is kind of why I wanted to get this done really quick, is like they create their own Doge that just becomes a means to cover up even easier. And by the way, I want to mention the school bond, the MISD bond. Was that off season? That was 2022. I think that was November 2022. So that was a midterm election, and so there was 14,400 people voted to put Midland in debt. So voted for the bond, 14,400, and 9,300 voted against. So those numbers are very dismal. And if there's a repeat of that situation, your taxes are going to be higher. Let's put it that way.
And like you said, once they get the ball rolling, they're going to keep doing these bonds over and over again until people either leave or get fed up and stand up against this crap, right? So, real quick, thank you for your time. Final words, anything you want to tell the audience, go ahead.
Go to MidlandDOGE.com, press contact. We will send you reminders about the election. Help us. Please help us if you live in a neighborhood around here. We need you, and it will be fun, I promise. Thank you very much, Nino. I'm so happy to be here with you.
God bless. And with that, we're out of here, y'all.